Charles Mitchell is one of Detroit's most powerful CEOs, building the future of automotive tech from the comfort of his glass mansion. But all his success means nothing the moment a 12-year-old delivery boy drops a snow-soaked envelope, and inside, a birth certificate bearing Charles's name as father. Haunted, Charles remembers Sarah, a bright tech enthusiast he once met in Chicago, but they lost touch. Now, her son Nathan and daughter Lily are struggling to survive while Sarah sits in prison, framed for a crime she didn't commit. Her letters to Charles, blocked by his assistant. Stunned by the betrayal, Charles confronts the past and vows to make things right. He meets Sarah behind prison glass, hears her truth, and brings the children into his home. Nathan builds mini self-driving cars in the garage. Lily sketches futuristic engines in the margins of her homework. They aren't just his kids, they're his legacy. But just as the bond begins to grow, Sarah's shady cousin Paul appears, demanding custody. Charles investigates and unearths a buried conspiracy that could change everything. Can Charles clear Sarah's name and rebuild the family he never knew he had? And what happens when a symbol of their broken past, Nathan's birth certificate, becomes the first thing they frame on the wall of their new cafe? Subscribe to see this heartfelt story unfold. Snow blanketed the city of Detroit like silence draped over old pain. Inside a sleek glass mansion perched above the skyline, Charles Mitchell stared at the untouched bourbon in his crystal tumbler. 42, CEO of Ion Drive Technologies, a name synonymous with innovation in the electric vehicle space. His face graced magazines. His voice shaped markets. But inside, he was a man with too many locked rooms and not enough keys. He stood from the leather armchair and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the snowfall blur the skyline. Somewhere beneath those lights, people lived lives that weren't pre-scheduled by assistants or buried in quarterly reports. The doorbell rang. Charles blinked, glancing at the clock. Past 9. His assistant hadn't mentioned anything. He tapped the intercom. "Yes?" A boy's voice crackled through, soft but firm. "Delivery. From Motor Eats." Charles sighed. He hadn't ordered food. Still, he buzzed open the gate. A minute later, the doorbell rang again. Charles opened the door himself. There stood a boy, no older than 12, dark curls tucked under a knit beanie. His jacket was thin, too small, sleeves ending above his wrists. Snow clung to his sneakers. Sorry, sir," the boy said, pulling a brown paper bag from his side. "Someone must have sent you something." Charles raised an eyebrow, taking the bag. "I didn't order this." "I know. Just doing my route?" As the boy turned to leave, a gust of wind blew hard against him. A folded paper slipped from his inner pocket, fluttering toward the marble floor. Charles bent and picked it up. A birth certificate. His fingers froze on the page. Under father's name, Charles Mitchell. He looked up. The boy had paused at the end of the walkway, turning slightly. "What's your name?" Charles asked. "Nathan," the boy replied, nervous now. Charles stepped out onto the porch. "Nathan? Your mother's name?" "Sarah Harper." The name hit him like a crash test dummy against a windshield. Sarah. From Chicago. From 12 years ago. The woman who talked about robotics the way other people talked about sunsets. The woman whose laugh had stayed with him longer than her number. She had vanished from his world. And now... this boy? Charles blinked hard. "Wait. Stop." Nathan hesitated, then bolted. Charles didn't chase him. The snow had picked up, swirling between the lamps and trees. He stood there, barefoot on the cold marble, holding a bag of food he never ordered, and a birth certificate that felt like a time bomb. He stepped back inside and locked the door. The birth certificate trembled in his hand. That night, Charles didn't sleep. Instead, he sat at his desk with the certificate in front of him and a fading photograph in his hand. A photo from the Chicago Tech Summit, 12 years ago. Sarah stood beside a solar panel model, her badge tilted, hair caught mid-laugh. He remembered thinking he'd never meet anyone like her again. And he hadn't. He'd been busy building Ion Drive, closing deals, earning press. He hadn't noticed that Sarah stopped emailing. He hadn't wondered why she never called. He'd assumed it was mutual. Now, he knew better. At dawn, Charles made a call. "Get me everything on Sarah Harper. I want her current address. I don't care what it takes." Within an hour, his head of security replied, "She's in prison, sir. Has been for nearly 3 years. Financial fraud. Convicted on evidence from her own company." Charles stared at the screen. Prison? His jaw clenched. "What about the kids?" "She has 2, Nathan and a younger sister. They're living alone. System doesn't know." Charles stood slowly, the weight of years crashing down on his spine. One vow. The desk, the birth certificate lay under his palm, stark, undeniable. Father, Charles Mitchell, and beside it, the photo of Sarah smiling, caught in the light of an old memory that refused to stay buried. Snow still clung to the gutters as Charles Mitchell's car glided through the streets of East Detroit. Gone were the glass towers and polished sidewalks. Here, the houses leaned into the cold like they were tired of standing. He glanced at the slip of paper in his hand again, an address pulled from public records. The GPS beeped. He had arrived. He stepped out, coat collar high against the wind. Across the street, a tired apartment complex loomed, graffiti on the lower bricks, a flickering porch light overhead. Apartment 3B. Charles hesitated, then crossed. He knocked gently, and no answer. He tried again. A small voice called out from inside, "1 second!" A few moments later, the door creaked open. A little girl, maybe 10, peered up at him. Her long curls were tied back with a rubber band. She wore mismatched socks and clutched a worn sketch pad to her chest. "Hi," she said cautiously. "Hi," Charles replied, his voice softer than he expected. "I'm looking for Nathan." The girl studied him for a long moment. Then she turned her head. "Nathan? That man's back." Footsteps thudded inside. Nathan appeared, eyes wide. He had changed into a hoodie with frayed cuffs and stood between Charles and his sister like a shield. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Charles said. I saw something last night that I can't ignore." Nathan glanced at his sister, then stepped out into the hallway, closing the door gently behind him. "You saw the paper," Nathan said flatly. "I did. You don't believe it, do you?" Charles paused. "I want to." Nathan blinked, unsure how to respond. "Who takes care of you?" Charles asked. "I do," Nathan said. "Me and Lily. Mom's in prison, has been for 3 years." The words hit harder than expected. "What about family? Friends?" Nathan shook his head. "We don't have anyone else, just her, and now she's gone." Charles ran a hand through his hair. "Why didn't anyone reach out?" "We tried," Nathan said, eyes flashing. "Mom wrote letters. She said she wrote to you, said you'd come if you knew." Charles's breath caught. "She wrote to me?" Nathan nodded, over and over. Something in Charles snapped. All those years he had wondered why Sarah never called, why she never reached out again, and now this boy, this child, was standing in front of him telling him the truth his assistant never did. She was framed, wasn't she? Nathan's shoulders fell. She didn't steal anything. She worked for a startup. They blamed her when money went missing, but she's not like that. She never would. Charles knelt slightly to meet his eyes. You believe her? Nathan didn't flinch. With everything I have. Charles nodded slowly. Then his eyes fell on the sketchpad clutched in Lily's hand through the door's narrow glass pane. What's she drawing? Nathan hesitated. Cars. She's always drawing cars. It's her thing. May I see? Nathan opened the door an inch. Lily looked nervous but held up the page. A sleek concept car filled the sheet, wheels glowing, lines sharp and fluid like something out of the future. Charles smiled. She's talented. Nathan nodded. She wants to work with real cars someday. Design them, like Mom used to. Charles stood slowly. And you? I build stuff. I like figuring out how things work. Engines, chips, sensors. That was all Charles needed to hear. I want you and your sister to come with me, just for a few days. You'll be safe, warm, fed. Nathan stared. Why would you do that? Charles reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the birth certificate, its edges still bent from the night before. Because I think I missed 12 years that I can't get back, and I won't miss another day if I can help it. For a long moment, Nathan said nothing. Then he opened the door wider. Come in, he said quietly. She's going to want to say goodbye to her drawing. The mansion was quiet except for the soft hum of heating vents and the ticking of a vintage wall clock. Charles watched as Nathan and Lily moved hesitantly through the entry hall, clutching their backpacks like armor. Their shoes left faint, wet prints on the marble floor, a stark contrast to the pristine space. Lily's eyes landed on a framed photo by the staircase. Charles standing beside a concept car, arms folded, smiling, powerful. She whispered, That looks like Nathan's drawing. Charles turned. Really? Nathan didn't speak. He looked uneasy, like he wasn't sure if he was stepping into safety or something more dangerous than the streets. I had breakfast set up in the kitchen, Charles said. You're probably starving. Lily perked up. Do you have waffles? Charles chuckled. Waffles, pancakes, you name it. She smiled for the first time, small and shy. After breakfast, Charles led them to a warm, sunlit sitting room. A fireplace crackled, and through the floor-length windows, snow drifted down, like feathers. On the mantel, he placed the birth certificate, not hidden away, displayed, a symbol of truth, long overdue. Nathan noticed. You're not ashamed? Charles shook his head. Only of how long it took me to find you. Nathan didn't reply, but his eyes softened. Later that afternoon, while Lily colored in a leather-bound sketchbook Charles had found in his office drawer, Nathan wandered into the home library. Charles followed, stopping at the doorway. You like books? Depends, Nathan muttered. Mostly read tech blogs, schematics. Charles's brow rose. You read schematics? Nathan turned. Mom used to bring home design layouts when she worked at Motorbite. I'd study them after school. Charles stepped in slowly. She was brilliant. I remember meeting her in Chicago. She was wearing a blue jacket with racing stripes. Said it made her feel like a rebel. Nathan smirked faintly. That sounds like her. We were both at an auto tech conference. I gave a keynote. She challenged half of it from the audience. She would, Nathan said, warming a little. She always said smart people ask better questions than they give answers. Charles laughed quietly. I didn't forget her. I just thought she moved on. I never knew. Nathan's expression darkened. You didn't even try. The words landed hard. You're right, Charles said softly. I let the noise of my world drown out something real. I won't make that mistake again. Nathan stared at him. She wrote to you, for years. I believe you, and I'll find out who stopped them, I promise. A pause hung between them like held breath. Then Nathan whispered, I didn't want to leave our apartment. Charles looked confused. Why? Because it's where she kissed us goodnight, where she hung our drawings on the fridge. I thought, if I left, she might come back and not find us. Charles swallowed hard. She will come back, Nathan, and I'll be standing beside her when she does." A knock echoed through the house. The butler appeared. "Sir, Detective Alvarez is on the line. He has information on Sarah Harper's case." Charles rose. "Tell him I'll call him right back." Back in the kitchen, Lily had drawn a small card, a sketch of a woman in a prison uniform holding hands with two kids, smiling through the bars. The caption in shaky letters read, "Please bring her home." She handed it to Charles. "Can you give this to Mommy when you see her?" Charles took it gently, heart catching in his throat. "I will," he said, voice thick. "I absolutely will." Nathan stood behind him now, watching. "You're really going to see her?" Charles turned. "First thing tomorrow. You both deserve answers, and so does she." Nathan nodded slowly, and for the first time, he said, "Okay." "Dad?" The morning air outside the prison gates was sharp and gray, biting through Charles Mitchell's coat as he stepped out of his town car. In his hand he held Lily's drawing, creased, carefully folded, still smelling faintly of cinnamon from breakfast. A guard escorted him through the layers of security, past cold metal detectors and empty vending machines. The visiting room buzzed low with murmurs, tables spaced evenly, each one under the eye of a mounted camera. And then, there she was. Sarah. She looked thinner, older, her once vibrant curls now pulled into a tight, tired bun. Her prison uniform hung loosely on her frame, but her eyes still carried that same sharpness he remembered from 12 years ago. Charles sat down slowly. She stared at him, guarded. "Charles," she said, voice cracked but clear. "I had no idea," he said softly. "I didn't know. About Nathan. Or Lily." She exhaled hard, almost a laugh, but it carried no humor. "I wrote to you. For years." His jaw clenched. "They never reached me. I figured. After the fifth one came back with a red stamp or went unanswered, I stopped hoping. I just kept writing for me, to feel sane." Charles slid Lily's drawing across the table. Sarah's hand trembled as she picked it up. Her breath caught. "She still draws," he said. "Every day." Tears filled her eyes. "She used to draw me rockets when I tucked her in." Charles nodded. "Nathan said you were framed. That true?" Sarah met his gaze. "It was Alex Grant, my project lead. He rerouted funds, pinned it on me. I tried to fight, but I didn't have the money or the connections. Paul promised he'd get help, but—" "Paul?" Charles asked. "My cousin," she said bitterly. "He testified against me, claimed I'd confessed to him in private." Charles's voice dropped. "And your lawyer didn't challenge it?" "He was overworked, assigned to me 2 days before trial. Didn't even know Nathan's name." Charles leaned forward. "I'm hiring a legal team. Today. Top of the line. We'll reopen the case." Sarah blinked. "Why now?" He hesitated. "Because Nathan walked into my life with a birth certificate I didn't know existed, and Lily handed me this drawing asking me to bring her mom home." Her face crumpled. For the first time since he sat down, her walls fell. "I begged the system to believe." "Me?" she whispered, but all it saw was a single mother, no money, no husband, working late at a tech startup, easy to discard. Charles swallowed hard. "You were never disposable." She looked away. "I thought I mattered. Once." "You still do," he said. "To them. To me." The guard tapped his watch. Time was up. Charles stood, then paused. "I'm taking them in. Nathan and Lily. They're safe now, but they want you. I'm going to get you back to them." Sarah clutched Lily's drawing tightly. "If you really mean that, don't stop. Not until this nightmare ends." "I won't," Charles promised. As he walked back toward the exit, the weight of years pressed heavier than steel, but he also felt something crack open, a path, a reason. Back in the car, he called his chief legal counsel. "Start building a case. Sarah Harper. I want you to dig into every detail of her trial. Start with the name Alex Grant. And one more thing. Yes, Mr. Mitchell? Find everything you can on a man named Paul, her cousin." In the rearview mirror, the prison loomed behind him. In his coat pocket, Lily's sketch pressed warm against his chest like a silent vow. The hallway outside Sarah's cell was dim. The buzzing overhead light, flickering like it, too, had given up hope. Charles stood still, watching the officer unlock the visiting room. His chest was tight, not from fear, but from shame. He had come too late, and now he saw it in Sarah's sunken cheeks, in the way her shoulders drooped with exhaustion rather than time. She stepped into the room slowly. Her wrists bore faint red lines from old cuffs. Even her walk had changed. Careful, measured. "Hi," she said quietly, folding her arms as if bracing herself. Charles nodded. "Hi." They sat, silence between them at first. Then Charles laid something on the table, Lily's second drawing. This one showed Sarah outside the prison walls, holding hands with her children under a bright orange sun. Sarah stared at it for a long time. "She still uses orange for the sky?" "Every time," Charles said, smiling gently. "Says it makes the world feel warmer." Sarah blinked rapidly, then exhaled. "She's so much like me, it terrifies me." "She's brilliant. So is Nathan," Charles said. "You raised them well." Sarah looked up, eyes narrowed. "I raised them in fear, in hiding. I lied to them about everything." Charles shook his head. "You protected them. That's not the same." Sarah leaned forward. "Why are you really here, Charles, after all these years?" "Because I didn't know," he said simply. "And now that I do, I'm not walking away again." She looked at him long and hard. "Your assistant. Her name was Carla, right?" He nodded. "I left messages, sent certified letters, even tried delivering them to your office myself. She told me you didn't want anything to do with me, that you were engaged, that I was making things up to get money." Charles's eyes went wide. "She said what?" Sarah's voice cracked. "She said you laughed when you saw the first letter, told her to block everything from me." Charles leaned back in his chair, his face pale. "That never happened. I swear it, Sarah." "I didn't believe her," Sarah whispered. "Not at first, but as the years passed, you never came. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't matter." Charles clenched his fists. "You mattered. You still do." A pause hung heavy between them. "I've already started working with a legal team," he said. "They're reviewing every page of your case file. I want you out of here." She looked down. "It's not just about me. It's about the kids. I've missed everything. Lily's drawings, Nathan's voice changing, school projects, birthday candles." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded paper, Nathan's science fair flyer. Crumpled, corner torn, but proudly labeled with Nathan's name in bold. "He built a solar-powered car prototype," Charles said. "He wanted to call it the Harper one." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't deserve him naming anything after me." "You earned it," Charles said softly. "You fought alone. Now you don't have to." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What happens next?" "You come home," he said. "I'll fight for you, for them, until your name is cleared." Another guard entered, signaling time was up. Sarah stood, hugging the drawing to her chest. "Tell them I love them." Charles stood too. "You'll tell them yourself. Soon." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Hey, Charles?" He looked at her. "When I saw you walk in, I thought maybe it was a dream." He smiled. "Then I hope you don't wake up. Not yet." And, as the door closed behind her, the drawing stayed pressed to her heart, orange sun and all. The sun was setting over Detroit, casting long amber streaks across Charles's office as he stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. "Are you absolutely certain?" he asked. On the other end, his head of security answered firmly. "Carla Morgan, your former assistant, blocked over 20 letters. We pulled internal mail logs from 5 years ago. Her name's all over them." Charles's grip on the phone tightened. "She told Sarah I laughed at the letters, that I didn't care." "I know," the man said. "And worse, she was being paid." Charles turned. "Paid? By whom?" "We traced several deposits to Carla's account, monthly, consistent, all from a holding company connected to Alex Grant." Charles closed his eyes. Of course. Alex, the same colleague who had accused Sarah of financial fraud, the same man who walked away from the scandal unscathed. "Thank you," Charles said grimly. "Send everything to my legal team." He ended the call and turned to his desk. There, Nathan's flyer still sat. Harper One, a solar car for the future. But Charles couldn't shake the image of Sarah's face in that cold prison light, her voice cracking as she said, "I didn't matter." He stepped out of his office and found Nathan in the garage, hunched over a workbench. Tools were scattered everywhere. A small car frame sat in the center, wires curling out like vines. "You've been busy," Charles said. Nathan looked up. "It's version 4. This one has regenerative braking." Charles knelt beside him. "You named it after your mom." "Yeah." Nathan hesitated. "She always said the sun would power the future. I just wanted her to know I listened." Charles placed a hand on his shoulder. "She'll be proud of you. I'm working on getting her home." Nathan's eyes searched his. "You really think you can?" "I know I can," Charles said, "and I'll prove it." Inside, Lily was at the dining table, coloring again. This time it wasn't a drawing of prison walls, it was a house. Their house. And in the window, 3 silhouettes holding hands. "You forgot something," Charles said gently. She looked up, confused. He pointed. "There's no sun." Lily grinned. "That's 'cause the sun's inside now." Charles smiled, heart tugging. He tucked the picture into his coat pocket without a word. That night, Charles made one last call. "Carla," he said when she picked up. "It's Charles." She was quiet for a moment. "I figured this day would come. I trusted you. I did what I thought was best for you. No, you did what was easiest for yourself. Sarah didn't deserve what you did to her." "She was going to ruin you," Carla said sharply. "You were on the verge of going public. A scandal like that," Charles interrupted. "She was the mother of my children. And you silenced her." A pause. "Do what you have to," she finally said. "I don't care anymore." Charles hung up. He walked to Nathan's room and knocked gently. Nathan was sitting by the window, car model in his lap. "Hey," Charles said. "Can't sleep?" Charles sat on the edge of the bed. "Me neither." Nathan looked down. "You're really angry, huh?" "I am," Charles admitted, "but I'm also focused. Sarah trusted the system, and it failed her. I won't." Nathan nodded slowly. "I used to think maybe you were a bad guy, someone who abandoned us. And now? I think maybe you just didn't know." Charles put an arm around him. "That's still on me, but I'm here now, and I'm staying." Nathan leaned his head against his father's shoulder. Outside, the city lights blinked like distant stars. Inside, the picture in Charles's coat pocket glowed faintly with color. 3 figures and a sun still waiting to rise. The morning sun poured through the tall windows of the dining room as Lily spread jam across a slice of toast with all the focus of an artist detailing a masterpiece. Nathan sat across from her, hunched over a tablet, sketching wiring diagrams for his latest car model. Charles watched them from the doorway, coffee in hand, a quiet ache in his chest. He'd missed so much. But today, he was changing that. "Kids," he said gently, stepping into the room, "I have something important to ask you." Lily looked up first. "Is it about Mommy?" He nodded. "Yes, but it's also about us. I want you both to stay here, not just for now, for good. I'd like to be your guardian while we work to bring your mom home." Nathan set the tablet down slowly. "You mean live here? With you?" Charles nodded again. "You'll have your own rooms, your own space. School, meals, everything taken care of, but only if you want to. This isn't about control, it's about choice." Lily looked at Nathan, eyes wide. "We could stay together?" Nathan looked at Charles. "You're not going to send us away if Mom doesn't get out?" "Never," Charles said firmly. "You're my children. That doesn't change with paperwork." Lily stood and walked around the table, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Then yes." Charles crouched and hugged her tight. Nathan said nothing for a moment, then quietly added, "Okay, but I still want to build stuff." Charles grinned. "I was hoping you would." That afternoon, Charles met with his legal team. Papers were signed, petitions filed, emergency custody granted. By nightfall, Nathan and Lily were no longer living in limbo. They were Mitchells, in name, in heart, if not yet by law. Later, Charles led them into a newly cleared room down the hall. Tables lined with tools, laptops humming, shelves waiting to be filled. He'd had the space converted in a day. Nathan gasped. "Is this for us?" Charles gestured to the large whiteboard mounted on the far wall. "Your lab, your ideas, your future." Lily walked in slow circles, fingertips grazing the metal cabinets. "I've never had a room that felt like a dream before." "You do now," Charles said softly. Nathan opened a drawer and pulled out a small model chassis. "I can build the Harper one here?" "With better tools," Charles said, "and no one telling you it's a waste of time." Lily pointed to an empty space on the back wall. "Can we put up Mom's drawing?" "Absolutely," Charles said. "It'll be the heart of the room." They smiled. But just as the warmth began to settle, the intercom buzzed. Charles walked over and answered. "Sir, there's someone at the gate. Says his name is Paul Harper. He claims to be family." Charles's jaw tensed. "Let him in. I'll meet him at the front." Minutes later, the heavy oak door creaked open and Paul stepped inside. Tall, trim beard, designer coat, polished shoes, and a smirk that didn't match his words. "Charles," Paul said, extending his hand, "we need to talk about custody." Charles didn't shake. "The children are safe here." Paul's eyes flicked around the marble entryway. "I'm sure, but I have legal ties to Sarah, family blood. I can't let you just scoop them up like a tech acquisition." "I'm not scooping anyone," Charles said. "I'm protecting them." Paul smiled thinly. "Courts may see it differently, especially with your financial interest. Headlines like CEO claims struggling kids after 12 years don't play well." Charles narrowed his eyes. "You're not doing this for them. You're doing it for leverage." Paul shrugged. "Or maybe I just don't trust the man who disappeared when they needed him most." "You had your chance," Charles said, "and you used it to testify against their mother." Paul's smirk faded. "This isn't over," he said. "No," Charles replied, "but it's only just begun." From upstairs, a quiet sound echoed, the turning of gears in a child's hands. And, from the pocket of Charles's coat, Lily's folded drawing rested like a promise he refused to break. In the days that followed Paul's visit, the house filled with the quiet rhythm of creation. The sound of drills, pencil scratches, and hushed laughter replaced silence. Charles watched from the doorway as Lily sketched on her large drawing pad, tongue poking from the corner of her mouth in deep concentration. Her latest design, a sleek, solar-powered concept car with butterfly doors and wheels shaped like teardrops. "What's this one called?" Charles asked, crouching beside her. She beamed. "It's the Sky Runner, for Mommy, because she always said she wanted to fly away." He swallowed, nodding. "She's going to love it." In the converted garage-turned-lab, Nathan soldered a microchip onto a custom board. He worked with surgical focus, wires draped over his shoulders like a scarf. Charles stepped in and stood beside him. You've been at this all morning. Trying to finish the model in time for Mom's hearing, Nathan replied. If she walks free, I want her to see what we built while she was gone. You think she will? Nathan paused, then said quietly, I have to believe it. Charles placed a hand on his shoulder. So do I. That afternoon, Charles brought in someone new, a retired automotive engineer named Rick Donovan, grizzled, patient, and brilliant. Kids, this is Rick, Charles introduced. He helped design the first generation of ion drive engines. Now he's here to help you. Nathan's eyes widened. Seriously? Rick grinned. Only if you're ready to learn fast. Lily offered her drawing to Rick. This is my concept. Can we build something like it? Rick studied it for a moment. You've got an eye, kid. We'll tweak a few angles, but this could glide. Her cheeks flushed with pride. Later, after the lesson, Charles tucked Lily into bed. She lay under a blanket patterned with stars, her drawing pinned to the corkboard above her head. Daddy? Charles looked up sharply. It was the first time she'd called him that. Yes, sweetheart? She fiddled with the corner of the blanket. What if they don't let Mommy out? They will, Charles said softly, brushing her hair back. And if they don't the first time, we try again. I promise I won't stop. She nodded and closed her eyes. But even as she slept, Charles stayed up late in the study, legal files spread out before him. Every document, every line of testimony. He read until his eyes burned. At 1:17 a.m., his phone buzzed, a message from his private investigator. Paul Harper met twice with Alex Grant in 2017, same law firm that buried Sarah's evidence, sending files now. Charles clicked the attachment and read the emails, shocking, blatant, damning. He picked up the phone immediately. Tracy, he said to his attorney, we've got the thread, the one that ties Paul and Alex together, email chains, bank records. I'm forwarding them now. We've got court in 5 days, she replied. This might be enough to flip the judge. Do it, he said. Whatever it takes. The next morning, Charles returned to the lab and found Nathan asleep at the table, arms cradling the nearly completed Harper 1 prototype. Charles gently lifted a folded note from beneath Nathan's elbow. It read, If Mom comes home, I want her to write in this first, even if it's just in the driveway. Charles set the note aside and placed a blanket over Nathan's shoulders. Then he turned to the model car, running a finger gently along its side. It was small, just plastic and wires. But it carried a boy's hope, a family's future, a promise in motion. And in that moment, Charles knew this wasn't just about clearing Sarah's name anymore. It was about building something stronger, something they could all ride forward in, together. It was a quiet Saturday morning when the knock came, firm, deliberate, echoing through the marble halls like a warning bell. Charles opened the front door to find Paul standing there, flanked by a lawyer in a slick gray suit and a woman holding a clipboard. I'm here for the children, Paul announced, not even offering a greeting. Temporary custody motion was filed last night. Judge signed the emergency order this morning. Charles narrowed his eyes. Emergency custody? Based on what? Paul's lawyer stepped forward. Unstable environment. No biological proof of paternity. Emotional manipulation. Your client is a corporate CEO, not a licensed guardian. From the hallway, Nathan and Lily peeked around the corner. Charles gently stepped in front of them. You don't care about their safety, Charles said coldly. You're after control and money. Paul's smirk grew wider. Courts care about paperwork, not intentions. Then let's talk paperwork, Charles said, reaching into his coat and pulling out the birth certificate. Nathan's name, Sarah's name, and his own. Certified. Issued at St. Joseph's Hospital. I just received the court-authorized DNA results as well. I am their biological father. Paul's face fell just slightly. Charles turned to the woman with the clipboard. "I suggest you call your judge before you traumatize these kids any further." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "We'll reconvene Monday." Paul glared at Charles. "This isn't over." Charles stepped closer. "You're right. It's just beginning, and I'm not going to stop until the truth about you and Alex comes to light." That night, after the house settled and the tension dissolved into silence, Charles joined Nathan and Lily in the lab. Lily was curled up on a beanbag, red marker in hand, coloring a revised version of her Skyrunner design. Nathan was adjusting a wheel motor, his brows furrowed in deep concentration. "Kids," Charles said gently, "we might have to talk to a judge soon." Nathan looked up. "Are they trying to take us away?" "They're trying," Charles said, "but they won't succeed. I promise." Lily looked down. "I had a dream last night that Mommy came home and we were all at a picnic. Paul was there too, but he tried to take my drawing." Charles sat beside her. "He can't have it. That's yours, and your mom's going to see it soon." Nathan leaned back, letting out a breath. "I thought once you were rich and powerful, no one could mess with you." Charles gave a sad smile. "People will always try. But money doesn't make you strong. What you stand for does." Nathan nodded slowly. "Then let's stand for her." Charles looked at the drawing Lily held out, now featuring 4 figures. She had added him. "You put me in the picture," he said, surprised. She shrugged. "You belong." Charles blinked, then reached for the drawing. "Can I keep this?" Lily smiled. "Only if you promise to put it in your office." He nodded. "Front and center." The next day, Charles stood in front of a different kind of courtroom. Not a judge's bench, but a press podium. Cameras clicked, microphones clustered. He held up Sarah's case file and said clearly, "This is not about image. This is about justice. A woman was wrongly imprisoned. A family was broken. And now, we rebuild." Behind him, Nathan held the Harper One prototype. Lily clutched her sketchpad. One of the reporters asked, "Is this a publicity stunt?" Charles looked down at Lily's drawing, tucked neatly into his breast pocket, and said, "No, this is a father trying to bring their mother home." And, for the first time in years, Sarah's name echoed not in whispers, but in the light. The office lights buzzed softly as Charles sat across from Detective Carla Ruiz, a retired financial crimes investigator he'd hired privately. Stacks of folders lay between them, each one thicker than the last. "We traced Paul's payments," Carla said, tapping a file. "Multiple wire transfers from a shell account owned by Alex Grant's cousin. Paul used the funds to pay off personal debts, credit cards, a new apartment, even a down payment on a boat." Charles exhaled, his fists clenched on the table. "So he was bought off to testify against Sarah." "And that's not all," Carla continued. "Alex's name came up in a memo buried in Sarah's old email backup. She flagged suspicious financial activity months before the arrest. She knew something was wrong. She tried to stop it." Charles leaned forward. "That's the missing piece." Carla nodded. The email was time-stamped one day before Alex filed his accusation. He preempted her whistleblowing. Charles stood, pacing. "We take this to Tracy. The court needs to see it." But Carla wasn't finished. "There's more," she said. "We spoke with Carla Morgan, your old assistant. She broke down. Said Paul threatened to leak false harassment claims if she didn't block Sarah's letters. She was scared." Charles stopped in his tracks. "He blackmailed her?" "Yes," Carla said. "She's willing to testify." Back at home, Nathan adjusted the final axle on the Harper One model while Lily practiced shading on her newest concept, a hybrid convertible she called the Second Chance. Charles entered the lab, clutching the folder of fresh evidence. Nathan looked up. "Any news?" Charles crouched beside him. "We have what we need to prove your mom was framed. The man who accused her and the cousin who claimed to protect you, they worked together." Nathan's face hardened. "Can we tell the judge?" "We will," Charles said. Your mom deserves the truth to finally be heard." Lily walked over and handed him her latest drawing. "This one's for the courtroom. Maybe if they see it, they'll believe she's more than just a case file." Charles smiled softly. "I'll make sure the judge sees it first." That Monday, Courtroom 3 in downtown Detroit buzzed with reporters, attorneys, and uneasy whispers. Charles sat at the front, Lily's sketch folded carefully in his inside pocket. Nathan sat beside him, fingers gripping the edge of the bench. Then Sarah entered, escorted by 2 guards in plain clothes. She wore a soft blue dress, hair pulled back, eyes sharp despite the fatigue. When she saw her children, her lips trembled, but she held firm. Judge Whitaker took the bench, gravelly voice filling the room. "Let's proceed with evidence review." Tracy, Charles's lead attorney, stepped forward. "Your Honor, we present financial records, sworn testimony, and digital correspondence proving a coordinated effort between Alex Grant and Paul Harper to frame Ms. Harper for a crime she tried to expose." Paul, seated 2 rows back, shifted nervously. Tracy continued. "Furthermore, we have a sworn statement from Ms. Carla Morgan, admitting she blocked vital correspondence from Ms. Harper to Mr. Mitchell under duress from Mr. Harper." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And the emails?" "Time-stamped and authenticated, Your Honor." Charles stood. "Permission to approach?" The judge nodded. Charles stepped forward, removing Lily's folded sketch and gently unfolding it onto the judge's desk. "She made this for today," he said. "It's not legal evidence, but it's the truth, drawn in the lines of a child who still believes her mother belongs at home." The judge studied the image. Sarah, Nathan, Lily, and Charles standing together, arms linked beneath a sun marked with the words, "Come home soon, Mommy." Court recessed in silence. As they stepped outside, Nathan grabbed Charles's hand. "Do you think she saw it?" Charles looked down at him, eyes full of fire. "She didn't just see it," he said. "She felt it." And, across the street, Paul slipped into a black car, unaware that his time in the shadows was about to end. Rain tapped steadily against the courthouse windows as the final day of hearings began. Sarah sat in her navy blouse beside her attorney, back straight, eyes forward. Across the aisle, Charles sat between Nathan and Lily. He gave Sarah a small nod. She returned it, barely, but it was there. Judge Whitaker entered the room. "Court is now in session." Tracy stepped forward, voice clear. "Your Honor, our final witness is Carla Morgan." Gasps echoed. Paul stiffened. Carla, Charles's former assistant, walked to the stand, hands trembling. She took the oath, eyes flicking briefly to Charles, then to Sarah. "I worked as Mr. Mitchell's assistant for 5 years," she began. "During that time, I intercepted and destroyed over 20 letters addressed to him, from Ms. Harper." The courtroom went silent. "Why?" the judge asked. Carla looked down. "Paul Harper told me Sarah was unstable and manipulative. He threatened to ruin my career if I didn't cooperate." "Was money involved?" Tracy asked. Carla hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, I received monthly payments from a third-party account tied to Alex Grant." "And these payments coincided with the suppression of Sarah's letters?" the judge pressed. "Yes." Tracy handed the judge a stack of documents. "All verified, Your Honor." Paul stood abruptly. "This is a setup." The judge banged his gavel. "Mr. Harper, sit down." Charles leaned toward Nathan. "This is it. The truth's coming out." And the judge flipped through the files, then turned to Sarah. "Ms. Harper, do you have anything to say?" Sarah stood. "Only that I tried. Your Honor, I warned them. I wrote every letter in hope that someone would listen. I never stopped believing my kids deserved the truth." She turned to Charles. "And I never stopped hoping he would see it." Judge Whitaker paused, then exhaled deeply. "In light of the evidence presented, including direct testimony, financial records, and suppressed communication, this court rules in favor of Ms. Harper. All charges are hereby dismissed." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. The judge continued. "Custody of Nathan and Lily Mitchell is granted jointly to their biological parents, Sarah Harper and Charles Mitchell." Sarah covered her mouth. Lily leapt from her seat and ran to her, arms flung wide. "Mommy!" Nathan followed close behind, voice cracking. "We knew you didn't do it." Sarah dropped to her knees as her children wrapped around her. Charles approached, emotion tightening his voice. "Welcome home, Sarah." She stood slowly. "Thank you for not giving up." He opened his palm, revealing a folded sketch, Lily's courthouse drawing, now creased and worn. "She put us together," Charles said softly, "before the system did." Outside, cameras flashed, but the family ignored them. All that mattered now stood between them: forgiveness, truth, and a second chance. That night, back at the house, the rain gave way to stars. In the living room, Lily presented Sarah with the original Skyrunner design. "I saved this for you." Sarah took the paper with trembling hands. "It's beautiful. I named it after you," Lily whispered, "because you always believed in light." Nathan wheeled over the finished Harper 1 prototype. Sarah laughed gently. "That's what you were working on all this time?" "For you," he said. "When you come home." Sarah knelt and hugged them both, tears falling freely. Then she turned to Charles. "I want to rebuild," she said quietly, "but slowly." He nodded. "Whatever pace you need, I'll be here." She looked down at the drawing in her lap. "We'll build something better this time, together." In that moment, the past didn't vanish. But the future finally had room to begin. The morning air in Detroit felt different, crisp, full of something new. Charles stood by the kitchen island, flipping pancakes while Lily set the table. "Mom likes honey, right?" she asked, reaching into the cabinet. "She does," Charles smiled, placing a pancake onto a warm plate, "especially on cold mornings." Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Nathan looked up from the couch. "She's up." They all turned. Sarah entered the kitchen slowly, wearing a light cardigan over her dress. Her hair, still damp from the shower, framed her tired but glowing face. Lily ran to her. "You slept through the night." "I did," Sarah said softly, wrapping her in a hug. "First time in years." Charles pulled out a chair. "Coffee or juice?" "Both," she grinned. "But let me sit first. I want to see all of you together." As they sat, Nathan pushed a folded paper toward her. It was a new version of the Harper 1 blueprint, colored, labeled, every piece measured. "We made improvements," he said. Rick helped. Sarah studied it carefully. "Nathan, this is incredible. I want to build the real version someday," he said. "You will," she replied, brushing his hair gently. "And when you do, I want the first ride." Lily tugged Sarah's sleeve. "We also made a family book. Want to see?" From her backpack, she pulled out a scrapbook, clippings of courtroom articles, family photos, drawings, even Charles's notes from the trial. On the front, a printed title in bold marker, "The Day Mom Came Home." Sarah's eyes filled. She turned to Charles. "They've held on so tight." He nodded quietly. They never stopped believing. Neither had he. Later that afternoon, Charles stepped into his office, now adorned with Lily's framed courtroom sketch. On the desk sat a smaller frame, the birth certificate Nathan dropped that night. It no longer shocked him. It steadied him. Sarah knocked on the doorframe. "Busy?" "Never for you," he said, waving her in. She looked around. "You kept everything?" He nodded. "They remind me of who I almost lost." She hesitated. "Charles, I've been thinking. We've spent so long fighting to be heard. Maybe now it's time we do something that lets others speak, too." He leaned forward. "What do you mean?" "Something small, public, but lasting. A space where kids like ours can learn, build, Speak, he smiled. A cafe? Her eyes lit up. A car tech cafe, with a mini lab, a design wall, and Nathan's first model on display. Charles stood. We call it Drive and Dream. And the birth certificate? She asked quietly. We hang it by the door, he said, voice steady, so no one forgets how it all began. From behind them, Lily called out, Mom, come see my new drawing. Sarah turned back, heart full. Be right there, sweetheart. She looked at Charles one last time. This time, let's build something that lasts. He nodded, his voice almost a whisper. Together. And for the first time since that snowy night, the house felt whole. Not because it was perfect, but because everyone inside had chosen to stay. The grand opening of Drive and Dream was nothing short of magical. The once empty warehouse space on Detroit's east side had transformed into a vibrant hub of innovation and hope. Sunlight spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, lighting up walls adorned with futuristic car blueprints and colorful sketches by Lily. At the center stood Nathan's Harper One prototype, sleek and polished, resting proudly on a pedestal. A crowd gathered, buzzing with excitement. Families, engineers, community leaders, and curious neighbors. Charles watched Sarah cradle Lily's hand as Nathan shyly introduced the prototype to a group of eager children. Look what I made, Dad, Nathan beamed, his eyes sparkling with pride. Charles smiled, swallowing the lump in his throat. This moment was everything he'd fought for. Behind the welcome desk hung a large framed copy of Nathan's birth certificate, the same one that had started it all. It wasn't just paperwork anymore, it was a symbol of truth, resilience, and new beginnings. Sarah leaned close to Charles, voice soft. You did all this. We did this, Charles corrected. Together. Lily tugged her mother's sleeve. Mommy, can I show you my new car design? Sarah knelt beside her, admiring the vibrant lines and bold colors. It's incredible, sweetheart. You're going to change the world. Outside, Paul Harper's bitter words felt like a distant memory, drowned out by laughter and music. The courtroom battles and dark secrets were behind them, for now. Charles stepped onto the small stage as the crowd quieted. He took a deep breath and spoke with steady warmth. Drive and Dream isn't just a cafe or a lab. It's a promise that no child should have to fight alone, that family can be rebuilt, even from the hardest places. He glanced at Sarah and the children. And it's a promise to Nathan and Lily, who taught me what courage really means. Applause filled the room. Later, as the sun dipped below the Detroit skyline, the family stood together by the large window, watching the city light up. Sarah squeezed Charles's hand. Thank you for bringing us home. Charles looked down at Nathan and Lily, their faces glowing in the fading light. No, he said softly. Thank you for bringing me back. And, in the heart of the city, beneath the glow of 1,000 dreams, a family's journey had only just begun. The morning sun painted the cafe's windows gold, casting soft light on every table, every blueprint, every smiling face. Drive and Dream was alive with chatter, young minds tinkering with toy motors, parents sipping coffee as their kids scribbled ideas on napkins. It wasn't just a cafe. It was a living, breathing engine of hope. Sarah sat near the front window, a warm scarf around her neck, watching Nathan explain his latest design to a local college professor. His hands moved fast, excited, confident. She blinked slowly, taking in the surreal peace of it all. Lily tiptoed over, carrying a laminated menu she'd designed herself, complete with car-themed pastries and fuel-shaped milkshakes. What do you think, Mommy? Sarah smiled, tears pricking her eyes. It's perfect, sweetie. So much better than those hospital meals. Lily giggled. I even named one after you, the Sarah Spark Plug, extra cinnamon. From behind the espresso machine, Charles watched them both. His heart ached. not with regret, but with fullness. He stepped over quietly, carrying a cup of coffee for Sarah and a folded piece of paper. "What's this?" she asked. He sat down, handing it to her. "Our first quarterly report, and something else." She unfolded the second page slowly. It was a deed, her name beside his. "You signed the cafe over to me?" she whispered. "To us," Charles corrected. 50-50. You believed in this long before I did." Nathan walked up, breathless. "Professor Green wants me to enter the Harper One into the Detroit Youth Tech Expo." Charles looked at him, amazed. "You ready?" Nathan nodded. "Can Lily draw the poster?" Lily pumped her fist. "Already started." Sarah looked between them, overwhelmed. "I don't even recognize this version of my life." Charles placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's because it's the one we were supposed to have, before lies got in the way." At the front counter, a young woman held up her phone. "Is that really the birth certificate from the news story?" The barista pointed. "Yes, ma'am, that's the one, right there by the door." The woman stared. "That's powerful. I came all the way from Lansing just to see it." Sarah leaned against Charles's shoulder. "You think this will last?" He looked around at the cafe, at the smiles, the sparks of curiosity, the freedom in their children's laughter. "Yes," he said, "because we're not running anymore. We're rooted now." As the day faded, Charles stood by the doorway, looking out at the quiet street. Nathan came up beside him. "Dad?" Charles turned. It never got old hearing that word. Nathan held up a small 3D printed keychain, shaped like the Harper One. "I made this today. Thought you could carry it." Charles took it, holding it in his palm like it weighed the world. "Thank you, son." And, for the first time in years, there was no void in his chest, no ache of absence. Just home, just family, just light, rising, warm and steady, over everything they'd rebuilt.